Hey everyone. Well, I'm here today to do my Q&A. So we had some people send in their questions, wondering about some of the different things that happen on the trail. So I am going to be answering some of those questions. So for all of you guys who did that, thank you very much. I enjoyed getting to read through the questions. So I'm going to start. I have them all written down here. Went through and wrote them down. So the first question is, what's the motivation for such a journey? Is it the challenge or something you've always wanted to do? So if you've watched some of my earlier posts, I grew up going to the mountains. My parents we had horses and they would pack us in, and so we would go up and we would camp, and I loved it. And I would always see people that were backpacking, and I was just amazed that those people were carrying their packs on their back, and I'm riding a horse. And I thought, oh, someday I'd like to do that. Well, I never did do it, and then I started day hiking, got into that, and then that moved me into backpacking, which I have ended up just loving. And this is only my third summer to do any backpacking. And I love Colorado. I just love to go and hike, backpack around Colorado. And I knew about the Colorado Trail. So I thought, well, I would love to try that trail. And it's short enough, about a month, and just in my backyard if I felt like. So I got that all planned up. And I also wanted to do it as a challenge. I've just always, when I'd start something kind of hard, I felt like I always would give up and quit sooner than I should have. So yes, I wanted to kind of do it also as a challenge and just see, could I do that? Because the longest that I've ever backpacked and stayed out has been 5 nights. And so, yeah, that's kind of my whole motivation to do that. Let's see, the next question is, how do you pack light? Well, that I am still struggling with that. My first time I went backpacking, my backpack weighed 48 pounds. Yes, 48 pounds. For those of you that backpack, I know that's just like a jaw dropper. And that was for one night. It's really comical thinking about it. But so I started off, and that was way too much. And then I went back home, started getting my pack lighter, and every single time for the last, I would just say for the last 2 summers, because I'm not gonna, this summer's not over, but I would go back home and I would get rid of something else, or I would rethink, do I need this? And so I've gradually gotten my pack down a little lighter. Still don't have it where I want it. And everybody is just different in what they take, what they want for their comfort. But for me, I want my pack to be as light as possible, because it's just more comfortable. You can go farther, and you don't think about it when you're packing your pack that every single ounce adds up. So, and I'm one just to pack and shove into pockets and think I need this and I need that when, I really don't. But for this trip, when I started off, I had 2 backpacks with me when I came to Denver, and I was still trying, up until the day I left, I was trying to decide which backpack I was going to use. And I am an Osprey girl. I love my Osprey backpack, but it's heavy. And then, I'm debating back and forth whether, should I carry a bear canister? I did end up carrying that, which that's heavier with my food in it. And so I took off and got through my segment 1, and most of you guys know I quit right after that, and then I ended up going back. But when I did come back to Denver, I did make some changes those few days that I was here. I sent the bear can home and just lighten my load, getting rid of a few little things. But I always carry my food bag. This is my food bag, still has food in it, for like a 6-day, that's for 6 days. But I have my sack. That's this bag, which is a little heavier, and when it's wet, it's heavy. But, this is supposed to be critter proof and bear proof. I'm still not so sure, because I've heard stories on this trail that a couple people had their sack shredded by a bear. I just think bears are very powerful. I could see them tearing this up. I don't know. I didn't have any trouble, but so I'm still just struggling with getting my weight down in my backpack with my food. That's one of my biggest things. And so when I did go with my bear can, my backpack was 38 pounds. And that's still, for me, I just still felt like that was too heavy. So when I traded out with my sack, got back on trail with my food, which was going to be for 5 to 6 days. I always carry an extra day of food, and my water, because I was going into segment 2, where you're going to walk about 10 miles without access to water. I had like 4 liters, because everyone says you pack your fears, and I did. I packed extra water, which I ended up drinking all but about a quarter of it out of the bottle, so I was glad I had that. But my pack weighed 32 pounds, so I kept getting my weight down, and that's still not light enough. I still want to get that down, but it is better than 48 pounds. And I carried the pack okay. It wasn't like I was never miserable carrying it, but I would like to have it lighter, and there's just different things that I can do and get rid of, which I've already started making plans on. And the way I do that is, I start looking at what have I used and what have I not used, and can I do without it. And there are things that I could shave off my weight to get that down. So I am still in the process of that. I would not consider myself with a light pack yet. Whenever you talk to other people and find out and feel of their pack weight, I have learned that that's what backpackers do. They get together and talk about gear and how much does your pack weigh. I've got a lot of learning to do with that, and I am more than willing to do that. I would love to get my pack down to where it's not too much. So I'm still working on that. Let's see, the next question is how much does your pack currently weigh? Well, it was 32 pounds. And each day that you eat your food, your weight's going down. And so I kind of had this little method of, at nighttime, I would go through and find my heaviest meal, the one that was, weighed the most, and I ate that first. And I would kind of plan out my food for the next day, because I always repack my food that I want to eat during the daytime into a different baggie, like a Ziploc, so I'm not having to get my food bag out. I would just get my heaviest stuff out, and I was trying to eat my way down. Yeah, so that's how I'm doing that, but I am still in the process of getting that down, my weight down for that. One of the question was, has your anxiety over water on the trail been eliminated? So if you watch my first videos in this Colorado Trail segment, you'll know that after segment 1, I was hearing all kinds of, terrible stories about how awful segment 2 was, and you've got to go 10 miles without water, and it's so hot, and I just kind of mentally, I just got a little freaked out by that and thought I'm not going to be able to do this. And I came back to Denver. I had my daughter and my son-in-law come get me, so I quit for a day or so, and then decided, no, I need to make a different plan, and I'll get back out there. I can't quit because of that. So I did, and I carried an extra liter of water, and it worked out just fine. And so, yeah, my anxiety of that, I overcame that, and there's still, and then for the rest after segment 2, I had plenty of water. I mean, there was water in, you'd have to plan it out. But I mean, I didn't ever have to go very far. I never did run out of water. I always had access to water. And I kind of got over that. I'm not saying that, because there are some segments that are, come up towards the end to where you might have to go, 20 miles without water, or, there may not be the greatest choices of water. But, I just got over that fear and, and thought other people ahead of me have made it just fine, and I will too, and I'll get it figured out. So yes, I did overcome that anxiety. Then the next question is, what does food look like on the trail for you? So that is something that I'm also working on, is getting the right food and not just packing. You may not always have all your favorite stuff. Some foods are heavier and there's not enough calories. So I'm still learning about what's the best food to pack. But for me, in the morning time, and I typically, have about 1.5 pounds of food per day. That's been about my average, even at home whenever I'm backpacking. And I've never needed more than that. And sometimes that ended up being, a little bit more than what I needed. But that has changed in the last week or so. I've gotten to where I'm a lot more hungry, so I can see where I would need a little bit more for those days. But I start off, for breakfast, I usually eat like a Pro bar, those like a meal bar. I love Bobo bars, I'll eat those. I did carry some protein shake powder, and I'm not a big breakfast eater, but I really do you need to eat before you take off for the day. But I would eat those bars, and then like probably 1.5 hours or so later, I would stop and drink one of those protein shakes that I made, and that was really good. That worked out great for my breakfast. And then I would have a mid-morning snack, another one. It seemed like I was eating every 2 hours or needed a snack, and that would be, I might eat some nut, like mixed nuts or cashews, and I would either have raisins or dried cherries or dried cranberries. I would have that. For lunch, I would eat turkey jerky, turkey sticks, almonds. I would have stuff like that. And then an afternoon snack, I would have something like, usually I'd have a Snickers bar, or I carried my delicious honey mustard pretzels. I love those things. Just things like that, or some type of a granola bar, protein bar, and then I would eat my dinner. And I did cook every night. I would have one of my Mountain House dinners, or I would eat ramen, and so I would have that. So that was my food. The last week or so, I noticed that I feel like I had my water under control really good. I didn't feel dehydrated because I made sure I had plenty of electrolytes. But I would feel in the morning time, my legs would just feel like they couldn't go. I was tired, and I really think it has to do with my food. I don't feel like I was consuming enough calories in the morning time. And it really is hard to do on the trail as much, you're walking, 13, 14, for me, the most I ever walked was a 15-mile day. But you're walking all day long and you're burning all those calories. I don't think you can ever consume the calories you need for that amount of exercise that you're doing. So yeah, so that's kind of my food. I'm still wanting to learn more about that and really get that down. So yeah, that's the whole food thing, which leads me into the next question. It was from my friend Kristi, and her question is how bad do you miss me? And do you fantasize about food while you're on the trail? Yes, Chrissy, I miss you. I really miss you a lot. I need you there to entertain me and make me laugh when I'm going up those hills in the day, to take my mind off of it. Yes, I miss you a lot. I do fantasize about food. I've made lots of comments about on trail. I would be talking about food. I'd be thinking about food, that I am a foodie. I love to eat. And yes, I did better. I noticed last summer when I was hiking, I fantasized about food a lot more, and I think I was just lacking some salt in my diet, and I just didn't have the right foods. And so this time when I've been hiking, I have thought about food, but not as extensively, I guess. But I know there was one day before I got to Breckenridge, that was going to be my very first town stop. And I was hungry for some food, and I was thinking about when I got to town what I was going to eat. And I was going to eat pizza, lots of cheese, because I love cheese, and I didn't have any cheese with me. I don't know, for some reason I was thinking about boneless buffalo wings and ranch dip and stuff like that. So yes, I would fantasize about food. One of the things recently that I was so hungry for was chip and dip. I just wanted all kinds of dip and chips and cheese and crackers. So yeah, those are things that I would think about. And I never did think about sweets, and I am a real sweet eater, like good pastries and coffee and stuff like that. But I think because I would have some candy each day, I'd have a payday bar or a Snickers bar or peanut M&Ms. I kind of kept, like the sweets. I felt like I had some sweet. I thought about coffee a lot too, because I didn't take any coffee. So yeah. And when I got to town, that was the first thing I did. I was hungry for food, but I went and got a cinnamon roll and coffee. So you can see where my priorities were right there. But yeah, that's the food part. Someone asked, have you seen a lot of other hikers on the trail? Yes, I did. I saw a lot of hikers, but it's not like what you would think. It's not like you're in bumper to bumper traffic. You see people are spread out. You kind of are in a bubble, like with people that you might have started the trail with, and you may camp around each other or, pass each other, kind of leapfrog on the trail. And then it seems like once you get to a town, either, if you stay one night and maybe they just go in and get a resupply and leave, then you may not see each other again. If you end up staying the same number of nights or just one night, you may end up seeing those same people. But yeah, there's a lot of people on the trail, and it's just really cool though. I mean, just all the people. You stop and talk, and some people want to talk for more, longer, and you get to know people. And everybody that I met, every single person that I met, they're all just so happy, and they're just kind and thoughtful, and they love to hear about what you're doing, or, just a little bit of your story. And I love to, hear about them, and then you just kind of go on your merry little way. I have just loved that. And that goes into some of the other questions was, what's some of the best parts of the trail, and what are some of your favorite parts of the trail. And there's two parts that have been my favorite, and as far as the hiking, and has been segment 5, coming through the Kenosha Pass. It's just so beautiful in there, and I love aspen trees and pine trees, and there's just so many of both, but it's just beautiful through there, and I just love that. There's just some big views when you come out of the trees. So that has so far been my favorite segment. And one of the other best things about the trail are the people. Of all age groups. There are young people who are coming right out of high school and they're getting ready to go to college, or they're trying to figure out what they want to do. There's young people that are in college and they're either, they're just off for the summer or they've graduated. There's single women. There's people my age. I'm 55, so there's people that are retired. There's just every person from every walk of life that you can think of, and everybody has the happiest attitude. I mean, they're just so grateful to be out getting to do what they're doing. They just feel blessed, and just so that they just love that they're getting this opportunity to be out in nature and experiencing this. So you just get the world is a wonderful place. It's also can be a hard place, and sometimes you get to feeling, or I get to feeling like, gosh, this world's getting to be terrible. There's so much great out there. There's so many beautiful things, and there's just so many wonderful people still out there that you may not even think about. And I have just loved that. I have loved just getting to meet people and hear where they're from and their stories, and they love to hear about me, so those have been my two favorite things. And that was that question. Let's see. Oh, is there any place to do laundry and to get pick up supplies? And yeah, there are places, and I had my days planned out to where like every 5 to 6 days I would go in, I would make sure I stopped, because carrying more days of food than that's heavy. I mean, food's my heaviest thing I carry, and the water. So I had that planned out. My first stop was in Breckenridge. And so I stayed at a hostel, which I wanted to do. I've never stayed at a hostel, so I wanted that experience on the trail to see what that was like. So I stopped there, and they didn't have a laundry, but I got directions and rode their little bus transit and went and found a laundry and did my laundry. You have to get, a little bit creative on how you're going to wash your stuff. So I carried all my dirty stuff that I wanted to wash in my food bag. I dumped out the food out of it and put my dirty laundry so I could, tote my laundry with me. And I went and found the laundromat, went in the bathroom, changed. I put on my shorts that I sleep in because they weren't as dirty. And then I wore my rain jacket, and then I washed everything else. So, I sat in the laundromat with my Crocs on and my shorts and my rain jacket, burning up, washing my clothes. So yes, it's lovely to get your laundry done. I mean, you take for granted being able to do that. And then for like resupplying my supplies, I did send myself boxes. Well, my sister sent them to me. I had the boxes ready, and she was just so, kind to send those to me. But I would have my food and any, supplies that I would want, just because I was not sure where I would shop, or like some places really don't, they may just have a little small store, and I just wanted to make sure that I had what I wanted to eat. And then I still would buy things, to throw in there that I wanted, some extra stuff, because people are right. They'll say, watch out what you're sending yourself, because by the time you get that resupply box, you may not even like that food anymore, or because you've been eating it, or you may be really hungry for something else. That's true. I learned that. Even some of my favorite things, or something that I typically have liked, I could not even bring myself to even want to eat. So, now I definitely see that, maybe send you some stuff you're not going to be able to find, like the protein drinks that I would drink, make. I probably wasn't going to find that powder, so maybe you send those, but wait and get the meal bars or something. Don't send those. Wait and buy those, because you may get sick of eating those Pro bars, which I did. So that's how I will get my resupply. I did, and I would take out what I wanted, and then I would either leave the rest and put it in the hiker box, because a lot of people go through and shop for, find things in there. One man's junk's another man's treasure. So I even shopped in the hiker box and found some stuff that I would want, that was different than what I had. Some things I ended up, if I had a bunch of it, I just sent it back home. So yeah, that's how you get your resupply. So I did that in Breckenridge, and then my next stop was Twin Lakes, and so I had a box sent there, and then Salida. So I have it planned out for like every 5 to 6 days, and you get your items. So that's that. What has the weather been like sleeping outside in the wilderness? Well, the first 2 segments, it was pretty warm. Segment 1 and 2, it was really warm. And it was nice. There was no rain. So that was fine. And then after that, every night, after that, it pretty much has rained every single day, or hailed. And probably the coldest that it got was, I think, maybe 40, 41 one night, which I wasn't miserable. I was plenty warm. But it was never hot, at night like that. It's nice and cool. So it was really nice to sleep. Let's see, what's another question? Who have you met on the trail that has inspired you the most? Gosh, I've met so many people. People are there's just different things that each person has inspired me, but a few people that I had spent quite a bit of time around, whether it was just we were walking in kind of the same bubble, and when you stop to take a break, you have conversation, or we would end up being in town together, and so you end up talking a lot more. So those people were very inspiring to me. One of them, she is very lightweight. Her backpack, like her base weight is 6 pounds something, and that's not including her water and food. And I asked her if I could put her backpack on even with the food in it, and holy smokes, that was so darn comfortable. I felt like I told her I could just run with this backpack on. Very inspiring to me. She's so kind. She gave me her email, and I just want to pick her brain more about how she packs and what she does to keep her backpack so light. Very inspirational to me, and what she knows about gear. That's her job, is she hikes and tries out gear, writes articles on it. The Clever Hiker, you guys could look that up. She has lots of good info, and the other people that write for them, lots of good information. But she's just a wealth of knowledge, and she's just very inspirational in what she's doing. So yes, her. And then a couple other people, including her, Casey Jones. Hey, Casey Jones, I miss you. They cold soak their food, and so I carry my little fuel can and my little pot with my stove, my little pocket rocket, and I know it's probably hard to see because of the sun. Yeah, my little pocket rocket thing that attaches onto my stove, because I do cook my hot meal at night. But one of the things that I talked about that after I come back off the trail, or even when I'm on the trail, I'm thinking, what else can I get rid of? Well, I only use this once a day, and that's to cook my meal at night. So, that's where I'm not saying you don't carry that, but I mean, I really think about, okay, what if I'm only using this once a day? What could I do to? I'm still going to have a meal at night. How could I maybe not have to take this and still eat my meal at night? So several people I know a lot of people do it, but the people that I talk to, they do cold soaking. So they have, they may have some of the same meals that I have, the ramen or, beans and rice, and they just have a container that they put water in and dump that in there and let it soak and rehydrate, and you eat it cold. And at first I'm like, oh no, I want a hot meal, but there's just a lot of things that you can do differently that I'm willing to maybe try. So some of those people were very inspirational to me, that they've cut their weight with their backpack, and that's one of the things they're doing, is not carrying like extra stove and fuel, and and they do their cold soaking. So those people have been very inspirational to me. There's people out there that have had different health issues. They've overcome them, and now they're out hiking. Or last year they started the trail last year, and for whatever reason they got off, and they just still had a great attitude about, hey, I'll go back and finish it next year. And they were out there this summer, and so it's just very inspirational. Just a lot of, different people like that I've gotten inspiration from. Another question was, are you afraid of wildlife? And what wildlife have you seen? So, no, the only thing that I was a little iffy about are bears. And I know typically bears, they're going to be more afraid of you than you are of them. But my main thing with bears is I just don't want them getting into my stuff. I don't want to have to deal with that. Not that anybody does, but that was the only thing I, kind of worried over a little. And I didn't have any experience with any bears in the wild. I did see the bear at Breckenridge through the window that had come and got into the trash at the hostel. And I videoed him through the window. That was perfect, and that was close enough, through the window. But I saw deer, lots of chipmunks, squirrels. That's it. I didn't see anything else. Oh, one snake. I saw one grass snake, but no, that's all the wildlife I saw. Lots of crows, hawks. So, yeah. Let's see. My next questions were, what has been the most challenging part of the adventure so far? And then also the question, which has been your least favorite part so far? I would say those would both go together. My least favorite and the most challenging for me was segment 1 and segment 2. I think just, segment 1 wasn't hard. It was just I was just getting out there, getting the through hike started and hearing the stories and, about segment 2. So that made that hard for me. And it was a hot day. It was really hot that day. So that made it, just kind of challenging. And also, TMI, but it was hard to find a place to go to the bathroom that was private. Yes, you're out in the woods, but there were so many switchbacks that you thought, oh, I could get here and go to the bathroom, and suddenly, thank goodness, you would realize, oh, there's a switchback. There's somebody walking right there. This isn't going to be a good place to go. That was challenging. When you got to go, you need to go. And then segment 2 just mentally was a challenge for me, because I was already going into it worrying about the whole water, and it was hot, for the first half of the day. I could see where that could get a little more challenging than what it was for me, because then by 1 o'clock or so, it was overcast, and so it did cool down. But I mean, you'll just hear all kinds of stories about people having to get rescued out of that segment. I could see where it could get bad, if you didn't plan for water, if you drank too much. And so those were my least favorite areas and my most challenging, just to kind of overcome, really just mentally. There have been other challenges like climbing. When you spend your day just going up, 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 it is challenging, but I mean, you just do it. You walk and stop. I would put my eye on a tree or a rock or a shady spot and say, I'm walking to there, and stop. I mean, there's no rule that says you can't stop 500 times if that's what you need to do. It takes you longer to get up there, to go through the ups, but I wouldn't say it was just a challenge it's challenging, but not something like segment 1 and 2 was for me, and that was more like mental. Let's see. And my most favorite parts is like, what's been your most favorite part or best part of the journey? And I've kind of talked on that a little bit, that it was segment 5 was my most favorite section so far, and meeting people, just talking to people and meeting people. One of the other greatest things is on those days when you're climbing and climbing, you'll be, you're in the dense forest, you're in the woods, the big trees, and you sometimes can't see, you can't see out past those trees, but when you get up to the top, it is just some of the views that you would get, it just opens up and just so beautiful. So those were some of the best parts. Besides, getting to your camp in the evening and putting your tent up and knowing you're finished for the day. That's always great for me. Yeah, so let's see, the other questions have to do with equipment. And so what's been your most favorite piece of equipment? Well, I have more than one. So one of the things that I don't use a water bladder that goes into the back of my backpack, or I do have one backpack where it is easy to access it, but I don't have that backpack with me. So I've never liked a water bladder for that reason, because you've got to put it in before you get all of your gear in, and then to try to refill it, and it's just kind of, for me, it's more of a pain. I use it on my day pack because I'm not hauling as much, but on this trip, I wanted to have access to my water. And on my backpack, I do have this little pocket that I put a water bottle in, like a little ½ liter, or you could put a liter in there. And so it's easy to access from there. But after that, I usually have a bottle in my side pocket, but then you have to try to get it out. Some days my arms don't want to bend back there to grab that bottle. So I started researching before I went. Well, in fact, it's when I came back off the trail after segment 1, and I thought, what am I going to do about my water? I want to have quick access to water. So I got on YouTube. And I found on Hike Oregon, which I will link her info below, but she had taken and which some people may have these tubes with these drink things. The sun's in the way there, your drink, and she got a sports cap and kind of worked it, heated it up, and then put this tube down in a bottle like this. I still have my bottle. It is awesome. I mean, this is just the greatest thing. I loved this. This has been my most appreciated piece of equipment. And so I stick it into, I would just slide it down into my side pocket. So it would just sit in my pocket like this, and then my strap was here, you know, I just had it around and I could just grab it and drink from it. It is the greatest thing. And I did have quite a few people ask me about this on the trail and thought this was pretty cool. And, you know, I can't take credit for making this thing, but you know, get on Hike Oregon and she'll tell you how to make one of those. So that was one of my greatest pieces of gear. I mean, I love that thing, and I will continue to use that because I had plenty of access to water. I didn't have to stop and refill my bottle and or, you know, try to grab it and drink from it. So I love that. Speaking of water, because, you know, I love water, and when I filter my water, I would use my Sawyer filter, and then I have a knock bag, whatever, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but I have a coupler and I attach it, and I could just hang it from a tree and my bottle would be attached to it, my water bottle, and it would just gravity flow through here and filter the water. I love that. I love that system, but it does take some time to stop, set it all up. And I got, you know, when you're hiking like that and you get on a roll, I didn't want to, I mean, I want to stop and get water, but I wanted something quicker. So before I got to Twin Lakes, I was just talking to lots of different people about what they do with their water, and a lot of them have the Katadyn Be Free, and it's a very soft bag. I mean, it can just be mashed up and shoved in your backpack, but it has the filter here. And I just watched them. They would just reach down, grab their bottle out, reach down, get the dirty water, dirty water, and then put their filter back on, and they would, you could just drink from it. Got the little sport cap, or they just immediately filtered that water into their bottle, and they could do it just really fast. So I thought, okay, I'm going to give one of those a try because, I'm becoming a gear junkie and I love to get gear and try gear out. I ordered one when I was going over Copper Mountain. I had the greatest service that I've ever had. And I ordered one of these to meet me in Twin Lakes. So when I got to Twin Lakes, I got my Katadyn Be Free and I started using it from there, and I loved it. And I do keep my Sawyer because I want to back up I want two ways to be able to, filter my water if I need to. And so I did keep this with me, sent my knock bag home, and started using this. And so I would just scoop the water, squeeze it into my bottles. It was fast. Or if I still had water in my 2 water bottles, I would just scoop up another liter if I was going to be a little bit further in between, and I just shoved this into my side pocket and I would have my extra water. So I loved that. That was wonderful for me. My other piece of gear that I loved was my umbrella, which in a lot of my videos you're going to see that I had my umbrella. A lot of times I did hold my umbrella if I wasn't having to use my trekking poles and I just had my trekking poles in another hand, but I could attach this where I ran it down through my chest strap, hooked it onto has a little, string here, and I would hook it to my hip belt, and I could walk just hands free with it while it was raining and hailing like crazy, because if it wasn't lightning, I just kept walking. And your pants get wet, your shoes get wet, but it just keeps that rain and definitely the hail from pounding the heck out of your head. I don't know, it was really nice. I really enjoyed it. I never used it for any sunny days because there hadn't been any days that I just was completely overheated, and and the sun was just bearing down on me. Even in segment 2, I didn't end up using it. So, but yes, I love that, and I've debated, several times whether to even keep that umbrella. But whenever it was just raining and raining and hailing, I was glad I had it. So, and it's very lightweight. I mean, doesn't really weigh anything. So, and I just stick it in my side pocket of my backpack, and it worked great. So that's another piece of gear that I absolutely loved. What was one piece of gear that was essential that I felt like I really needed? And that is my Garmin, my GPS. There's a lot of people who don't use these, but for me, just for my peace of mind, for my family's peace of mind, I loved having this. I just paired it to my phone. I could text my family in the morning and say, I'm heading out, or when I got in the evening, made my camp. Or if I needed like my daughter to do something, or, someone or my sister to send something extra to me, I was able to still contact them. And I loved having that just for my peace of mind, for their peace of mind. So for me, that's essential. Another thing that is essential for me for this trip was my data book. It tells you where you're at, your mileage, where there's water, where there's a place to camp. But I paired this with my phone, with my Far Out app. Used to be Gut Hooks, it's Far Out. Because that was real time. I mean, people that are ahead of you would say, no, there's really not water here. Or, if in the book it says there's very little chance of water, they would say, no, there's plenty of water, or there's good campsites. The campsites may have not been listed in here, but people said, yes, there are campsites. I love that. That just helped with your planning. So for me, that was essential too. And I can't tell you, there were several times that I would I would get to a junction, and I would maybe end up going the wrong way, thinking I'm going the right way. And I would I wouldn't get miles, I would just get some steps, and I'd realize, oh, I'm going the wrong way, because my Far Out guide, I could look and actually see, where I'm at. So for me, sometimes I can be direction challenged. That worked out. That was wonderful. The other question is, what is a piece of gear that you could get rid of or you could send home? And I have already kind of talked about that with my little cook pot. I think that I could send this home, get rid of this and my fuel can, and just go to cold soaking, and that being because I'm not using it more than one time a day. And so I think that I could make do without that. That would be something that I could get rid of. Another was, what's something new? What's a new piece of gear that you weren't sure about? When I've always used a sleeping bag. I have one that I use in colder weather and one that I had got that I use for summer, and I've loved those, but I have sort of struggled at times with, I would end up being cold. I'm kind of a cold sleeper, but I don't know, I just always kind of didn't feel just 100% just loving my sleep system. And so in all my researching and looking at gear, a lot of people use a quilt. And I was like, no, I'm just not that type. I don't want drafts, and I don't want to feel little bits of cold air coming in. And so I've been, real hesitant to even go the quilt direction. But finally, I saved my money, and I decided to get a quilt. And so this trail is the first time that I have used a quilt, and I am going to tell you, I love I absolutely love my sleep system. I have never slept so good. And at first I thought, well, maybe it's because I'm so gosh darn tired at the end of the day from all that walking. But no, I truly slept so wonderful. And I will put some pictures of my tent with my sleep system. So I have my Thermarest blow up sleep pad, and then I take my quilt, which I have my quilt here in the bag. It's an Enlightened Equipment quilt. And it's got the, it's gonna be a little hard to see maybe. It's got a foot box, foot area that kind of snaps and zips. And so your feet just can automatically, you know, just go in there. You can push your feet in there. But it has these stretchy bungee, or, you know, these little stretchy things that you can put them around your sleep pad to keep your, you know, it sort of just cocoons your little your sleep pad, and then you sleep on the sleep pad. But I have my sleeping bag liner, my thin one that I use in the summer, that I use to get into, and it's kind of like a sheet, but you're just laying right on the pad, and it was so comfortable. I wasn't cold. If I did get warm, I could just kind of throw the quilt off. It'd be like a blanket, you know, or I wouldn't, the first, on segment 1 and 2, I didn't even put it around the pad. I just covered up with it like a quilt, like a blanket. That way I could just throw it off of me. After that, I mean, it was cool enough at night that I just had it, you know, attached around my sleep pad. And so you can toss and turn and move, and but yet you still didn't get tangled up in your quilt like I would my sleeping bag. So this quilt I've converted. I do not think I will ever go back to using a sleeping bag again. I mean, I'll keep my sleeping bags. I'm not saying I may not use them, but I am 110% very happy with this quilt. So that's the piece of gear that I was skeptical on, but ended up loving it. Love it. Let's see if there's any more questions. Don't want to skip anyone. Oh, I think that's it. For myself, I always have questions at the end of my hikes. I've mentioned before that, you know, I want my hikes, my backpacking trips to be as enjoyable as possible. I do want to carry the lightest amount, you know, of a backpack, because that makes it just more fun. It makes it just, it's easier. It's makes your knees feel better, your feet feel better, not to be hauling stuff. So I'm constantly reflecting on what could I do different, or what did I not use that I could, you know, safely not bring with me. So I always have my own questions, and I just keep working towards having a better pack and having a better trip. But I just thank all of you guys for all the questions you've given me. You know, they make me think about what's happening on the trail. It gives me good reflection, you know, and just your kind words and just thinking about me and wishing me well. I just appreciate that so much. I hope you all have a great day. See you later.